Welcome to The Explainer. So we're jumping right into a question that absolutely lit up the internet. Is a woman who's been married before, well, is she used goods? Yeah, it's a painful question. But today, we're going to explore how this very modern, very raw question gets answered by a system of values that's been around for centuries. All right, let's just dive straight in. This is the quote, word for word from a Reddit post. You're basically getting used goods, right? I mean, it's raw, it's unfiltered, and you can bet it sparked an intense, really emotional debate, especially within the online Muslim community. So what's really going on here? Because, at its heart, this isn't just about marriage. It's about these really deep anxieties people have about love, about value, about being compared to someone else, and about faith. To really get what's happening in this conversation, we have to go back and look at the foundational ideas that are shaping all the responses. Okay, so first things first. Let's break down exactly what the original poster was asking, because it's their specific concerns, right? Their fears, that's what poured fuel on this entire fire. So the user really put it all out there, these really personal fears. First, they were asking, is marrying a widow or divorcee actually an encouraged practice, a sunnah? You can hear the doubt in that. Then there was this fear of being compared to her old husband, this anxiety that she could just never love him as much. And it all kind of boils down to that one really inflammatory phrase, used goods, which, let's be honest, connects directly to these super modern anxieties we see all the time, like the whole body count debate. Now, to make sense of the pushback and the answers people gave, we've got to rewind. We need to go back and see how Islam actually created this fundamental shift in how women, and especially widows, were seen in society. And to really feel the impact of that shift, you have to picture what it was like before. I mean, in a lot of pre-Islamic cultures, a widow could literally be treated like property. Sometimes she was even inherited by her husband's male relatives. She was left with basically no rights, no security, nothing. So Islam comes along and introduces this just radical departure, establishing that a woman has her own distinct, dignified legal and human status. In this idea of her inherent worth, it wasn't just a suggestion. It's built on these core theological principles. The Quran says that men and women were created from a single soul. And this is a huge one. It says the blame for the temptation in the Garden of Eden, it falls on both of them. That's a clean break from traditions that put all the blame on the woman. So this whole framework gives her worth that's totally independent of who she's married to or if she's married at all. All right, now let's get to what might be one of the most powerful arguments that kept coming up in this whole debate. The personal example set by the Prophet Muhammad himself. And this speaks directly to that original Reddit post. Okay, so that word sunnah, it was right there in the user's original question, and it's key to this whole thing. It basically means the lifestyle, the actions, the habits, the whole example of the Prophet Muhammad, which Muslims see as a model to follow. The user was basically asking, is marrying a widow really part of that model? Well, the historical record gives a pretty direct, and for a lot of people, a pretty surprising answer to that question. Check this out. The Prophet's very first marriage, at age 25, was to Khadija. She was a twice-widowed, incredibly successful businesswoman, and she was older than him. They were married for 25 years, and during that whole time, he was monogamous. He took no other wife. And then, after she passed away, nearly all of his later wives were also widows or divorcees. So this wasn't some kind of exception to the rule. This was the precedent. But you see, this precedent wasn't just about a personal example to follow. It was backed up by an entire system of legally defined rights. Rights designed specifically to give women security and independence, especially after getting married. A huge piece of this puzzle is something called the mahar. So this is a mandatory gift, a payment that the groom gives to the bride. Now, it is absolutely crucial to understand, this is not a dowry, and it is not a bride price. It's a symbol of his commitment, and it becomes her exclusive property. It's hers, completely. It gives her financial agency right from day one. And the mahar is really just one part of this whole ecosystem of financial security. Islamic law actually codified a woman's right to own her own property and manage her own money, her right to inherit from her husband and parents, and her right to be financially taken care of by her husband, even if she's independently wealthy. When you put them all together, these rights were designed to create real economic independence. And let's look at just how specific this gets when it comes to inheritance. A widow's share of her husband's estate is legally guaranteed. It's not something left up to chance or the goodwill of the relatives. As you can see here, the law spells it out. She gets a 1/8 share if they had kids, or a 1/4 share if they didn't. This isn't optional, it's a non-negotiable right baked into the system. Okay, but the sources take this even a step further. It's not just about an individual woman's rights. The whole issue is framed as a collective, societal duty. It's really about how a community is supposed to look after its most vulnerable members. Just listen to this teaching, which is a saying attributed to the Prophet. The one who strives to care for the widow and the poor is like the one who wages jihad in the cause of Allah, or the one who fasts all day and prays all night. Wow. I mean, think about that for a second. It equates this social responsibility with the absolute highest acts of faith, like holy struggle or constant fasting and prayer. It puts it on that level. So this completely reframes the whole act of marrying a widow. It goes from being seen as, taking on used goods to being considered this incredibly meritorious act, this kardeh savab, an act of great reward. It's seen as a way to build up the community and provide a vital support system for a woman and her kids, making sure they are never, ever left isolated. So when you pull all these different threads together, the theology, the law, the personal example, the social duty, what you get is a complete reframing of that original, very emotional debate that started on Reddit. It really boils down to two completely different ways of looking at it, right? On one side, you've got this modern, anxious view that's totally focused on a woman's past, on things like body count, and this fear of being compared. But then, on the other side, you have this theological and social framework that is focused entirely on her future, on her inherent dignity, her legally protected rights, and the community's responsibility to support her. So what started as this really painful, modern, online question, it ends up revealing this deep, comprehensive system of values. It's a system that insists on the dignity of a person completely regardless of their past. And that really leaves us with a final question to chew on. In a world filled with all our modern anxieties about relationships and self-worth, what can we learn from a 1,400-year-old framework that seems to care a whole lot less about a person's history and a whole lot more about their future?